And that's always been the kind of ideology from the U.S. government, working with the worst of the worst to throw at your bad guy enemies, how they perceive it. Well, here's what this document actually says. Project Aerodynamic. It represents their division's only organized contact within a non-Russian people. So this is basically in Ukraine under the Soviet Union, right? Where they were in the outward narrative of the U.S. government, they were fighting communism. All right, so they have this group where they were working with whoever they could to create the entities they would use to destabilize and manipulate from within the Soviet Union, but also to seed their information and get assets on the inside. It says through, and this is specifically through what this is called then the ZPUHVR, foreign representation of the Ukrainian Supreme Liberation Council, which again, I'll show you very clearly in a second, which is the part of the organization. Well, I think I have it right here, actually. Yeah, the Ukrainian Supreme Liberation Council, which is the Organization for Ukrainian Nationalists, the OUN. That's important because that is the group we're talking about today. That's where their symbols come from. And I'll show you this as we go through it today, which I've already done before. Oh, that's interesting. His name pops up in a second. He's an asset, which is somebody who worked with Radio Free Ukraine, one of these classic groups. There's so many parts that show you this ties right back to a U.S. government operation. It's crazy. And this guy is an asset from this exact project. I'll show it to you in the documentation. But anyway, so this is this group. That is the Organization for Ukrainian Nationalists. And here is the Organization for Ukrainian Nationalists, radical nationalist right-wing groups. The OUN was the largest and one of the most important far-right Ukrainian organizations. Who's their leader? Stepan Bandera, a Nazi criminal. Its ideology has been described as having been influenced by the writings of Donstoff from 1929, the Italian fascism, and of course by 1930 Germany and German Nazism. Members of the OUN took an active part in the Holocaust in Ukraine and Poland. So pretty not hard to see. Oh, and by the way, the thing that they're all screaming today, including U.S. politicians, Slava Ukraine, that's what that comes from. A Nazi slogan for honoring their, that's what it comes from. I mean, it's a fascist term. And then, of course, Stepan Bandera, in case you didn't know, was a Ukrainian far-right leader of the radical militant wing of the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists. It's not hard to understand how this all overlaps. We'll come back to Mykola Lebed in a second. So, just understand again, the ZPUHVR, just as I just showed you, is the OUN, the same group, or there's different parts. The group of the anti-Soviet Ukrainian immigrants is what we're talking about. So I'm just going to say the OUN for simplification. The OUN contacts with Soviet Ukrainians are being exploited. This is the CIA writing this in 1966. Exploited, basically. So they're talking about the basically Soviet Ukrainians that are in the Soviet Union, but at the time was Ukraine, but also in Russia, that are being exploited to see their own agenda. Intelligence on the USSR will be gathered to satisfy United States needs. Now, this isn't as important as the other stuff, but it's just simply showing you that they were very clearly using average people to be able to achieve their own ends, often at the expense of these average people that, in no matter what country we're talking about, would be charged as treason, right? These are average people. Now, the OUN, through the Prologue Research and Publishing Association, Inc. in New York. This is a real, I hope I didn't close that, actually. Hold on one second. I had it open and I forgot I closed it. I wanted to look up Prologue. Let's see if it pops up. I think that was it. Shoot. Well, the point was I just wanted to show you that company. Oh, is that it right there? No, these are newer ones. Well, anyway, we'll go through it. The point is, as I've told you many times, Prologue is a publishing company that was in New York and Ukraine. So think about the idea that they used, which I'll show you next, a Nazi war criminal, not a neo-Nazi, but a Nazi war criminal, Mykola Lebed, to run this company in New York and seed their propaganda into New York hands, into American citizens and Ukraine, It's saying that they, through the Prologue Company, the cover organization established to conduct its clandestine activity, contributes to Ukrainian nationalist ferment. Okay, so right out of the gate, you can see the whole point was building the Ukrainian nationalist mindset. What else do you call what we're talking about in Ukraine today? Now, just being a nationalist does not mean you're a Nazi or not even an extremist, but that is what they were driving. They wanted these people to get angry and to have this kind of mindset so they could be used and mobilized. Their documentation makes it clear, exploiting existing and encouraging new deviationist tendencies among Soviet Ukrainians. They're trying to create the division, the protests, the people that are willing to stand up and even think that they're doing it of their own accord. Think all the locations we talk about, whether China or Taiwan or Syria or Iran, we've seen these organized efforts. The OUN is a small, tightly knit group of individuals who were sent from the Ukraine in 1945 by the Ukrainian Supreme Liberation Council to make contact with Western intelligence and the representatives and to act in behalf of the homeland. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? So in